On the mild end, you'll find people who are self-centered, emotionally immature, or simply unaware of others' needs. On the extreme end, you have malignant narcissists, coercive, manipulative, and often dangerous. And right in the middle, the gray area, lies the group most of us end up dealing with. These are the people who aren't overtly cruel but still leave you feeling drained, confused, and emotionally exhausted. They're not necessarily evil, but they're toxic enough to distort your sense of self over time. That middle ground is where real emotional damage happens. Not because of violence or overt abuse, but through subtle guilt-tripping and emotional neglect. These aren't everything. Here's something that may surprise you. Even many clinicians hesitate to diagnose NPD. Why? Because labels can be stigmatizing and don't always help the client heal. Some experts even believe the diagnosis itself should be retired, arguing that understanding narcissistic patterns is far more important than sticking a name on them. In real life, you'll rarely find plenty of people who behave like text. That's why the focus shouldn't just be on diagnosis, but on awareness. Once you can recognize the traits, the manipulation, the entitlement, the lack of empathy, you can protect your boundaries before you get pulled too deep. A reality check. If you meet someone at a dinner party patterns, bragging, belittling others, fishing for compliments, or refusing accountability, you might have a strong hunch that you're dealing with a narcissistic personality. But even then, it's not your place to diagnose. You can't look at someone and declare, you have narcissistic personality disorder. That's not how it works, nor is it helpful. What is helpful is knowing the signs and being emotionally entangled. Why narcissists target empaths? Let's dive into something that confuses a lot of people. Why do narcissists seem to be drawn to kind, genuine, empathic souls? Here's the paradox. Narcissists crave emotional energy. They are disconnected from their own They're not looking for love, they're looking for supply. They want validation, admiration, and control. And who provides that best? Empaths, people who feel deeply, who understand others, and who want to help. Empaths radiate warmth, compassion, and understanding, all things the narcissist lacks within themselves. To them, your kindness is not a virtue, it's a resource. Your empathy becomes their chilling. Narcissists often have a radar for emotional sensitivity. They can sense who will listen, who will comfort, who will forgive. They don't fall in love with you, they fall in love with the way you make them feel about themselves. The cycle: idealization, devaluation, and discard. If you've ever been caught in a relationship with a narcissist, you've probably experienced their psychological cycle, a pattern that always ends in emotional chaos. 1. Idealization phase, the love bombing stage. It starts like a dream. They shower you with compliments, affection, and attention. They mirror your interests, your values. You feel seen, understood, and adored, like you've finally met your soulmate. But this stage isn't love, it's a strategy. It's emotional bait. They're gathering information, learning what makes you happy, what makes you insecure, and how to control you later. 2. Devaluation phase, the confusion begins. Once they have your trust, the mask begins to slip. Suddenly, they're colder. They criticize things they once admired. You find yourself working harder to please them, desperate to return to how it used to be. You start to question yourself. Why are they distant? Maybe if I try harder, things will go back to normal. That's exactly how they trap you, by making you chase the version of them that never really existed. 3. Discard phase, the silent exit. Eventually, the narcissist either leaves abruptly or emotionally checks out. They might ghost you, cheat, or suddenly act like you never mattered. They move on without remorse, because to them, you were a source of supply, not a human being. And the moment you stop feeding their ego, they'll look for someone else who will. The hoovering trap. But it doesn't always end there. After they discard you, narcissists often come back. This is known as hoovering, like the vacuum cleaner. They might send you a message saying, "I've been thinking about you." Or, I miss us. I've changed. It's not love. It's a test, to see if you're still available, still controllable, still supply. The moment you let them back in, the cycle starts again, only worse this time. Because now, they know exactly how to break you faster. How to emotionally disengage. The hardest part of dealing with a narcissist isn't leaving them, it's staying away. Because even after the chaos, part of you still misses them. You miss the illusion, the attention, the version of love they once pretended to give. Here's how to take your power back. 1. Accept that closure will never. Don't give closure, they give confusion. They'll never admit fault, and waiting for an apology only keeps you trapped. Your healing begins when you accept that you'll never get an honest explanation. 2. Go, no contact. No messages. No phone calls. No, just checking in. Block them everywhere. Every time you reopen that door, you invite chaos back into your peace. Protect your energy like your life depends on it, because emotionally, it does. 3. Rebuild your identity. Narcissists break you down so they can control you. They want you to forget who you were before them. Reclaim that version of yourself, the confident, curious, and start small. Take yourself out. Read again. Create again. Laugh again. Every act of self-control. The empath is awakening. You didn't attract the narcissist because you were weak. You attracted them because you were strong enough to make them feel powerful. But now that you see through them, your empathy becomes your greatest weapon, not your weakness. It's what allows you to love deeply, but also to protect that love fiercely. The world needs your light. Don't dim it because someone tried to exploit it. Instead, grow wiser. Sharper. Become a guardian of your peace. When you learn to say no with confidence. When you learn to protect your energy. When you learn to walk away from manipulation. That's when you evolve from being a target to being untouchable. Reclaiming power. The real healing happens when you stop trying to understand why they did what they did, and start understanding why you allowed it. Not as self-blame, but as self-awareness. Because once you understand what kept you tied, fear of being alone, need for validation, or guilt, you reclaim your emotional independence. Forgive yourself for not seeing the red flags sooner. You were taught to see the good in people, and that's still a beautiful trait. But now you must also learn discernment. Not everyone deserves your kindness. The right people will never make you question your worth. They will respect it, honor it, and mirror the love you give. If you've ever been drained by a narcissist, here's your reminder. You're not broken. Your empathy is your superpower. Your boundaries are your protection. And your self-awareness, that's your armor. But stay sharp. Be loving, but stay guarded. Because not everyone who smiles at you has good intentions. You owe it to yourself to protect your peace, and to never again mistake manipulation for love. Of narcissistic attraction. Why good people keep getting hurt. Here's the uncomfortable truth most people never want to face. It's not random that narcissists fear light, and you, in some way, are drawn to their darkness. It's about unconscious patterns. You see, when you grow up being taught to please, to fix, to be the good one, you often learn to connect love with sacrifice. You learn to earn affection by overgiving, by being understanding, by being the one who always holds things together. So when a narcissist appears, confident, charming, and emotionally intense, your nervous system mistakes that drama for passion. It feels familiar. But it's not love, it's trauma dressed as excitement. The wound that narcissists sense. Narcissists have an uncanny ability to find people who carry what psychologists call a fawn response. These are individuals who cope with conflict or rejection by appeasing, by smoothing things over, by putting others' needs first. If you grew up with emotionally unavailable parents, critical authority figures, or that to be safe, you have to be perfect. That to be loved, you have to perform. That to keep peace, you have to stay silent. Narcissists smell that. They sense that you'll bend, that you'll try to understand them, that you'll take result. And that's exactly what they want, someone who will never hold them accountable. The mirror illusion. When you first meet a narcissist, they reflect your best qualities back to you, your humor, your dreams, your values. It feels like soul recognition. But what you're seeing is not authenticity, it's imitation. They study you carefully and become whoever you want them to be. You think you found compatibility, but what you've really found is a projection of yourself. That's why. What happened to the person I fell for? The painful truth is, that person never existed. They were a mask built from everything they learned longer than you should. People often ask, if it's so toxic, why do good people stay? The answer lies in intermittent reinforcement, one of the most powerful psychological hooks there is. Narcissists mission with neglect, validation with rejection. It keeps you addicted, like a gambler waiting for the next win. You remember the high of their love bombing, and you keep trying to get back to it, not realizing that the game is rigged. Every time they withdraw affection, your brain releases stress hormones. Every time they give you crumbs of praise, you get a dopamine hit. And just like that, you're trapped in a nerve to escape. Breaking the cycle. The only way out is awareness. You have to stop romanticizing potential. You have to stop trying to heal someone who doesn't even see their own wounds. Here's the truth. You can't love someone into emotional maturity. From breaking others. And you can't find peace in a relationship that thrives on chaos. To break free, you must shift your focus inward, from trying to understand them to understanding you. Ask yourself. What need was I trying to meet through this connection? What part of me believed I had to earn love? What fear keeps me from walking away? When you start answering those questions honestly, you take your power back. The healing stage. Healing from narcissistic abuse isn't about hating them, it's about reclaiming yourself. You'll go through stages: confusion, anger, sadness, and eventually, clarity. At first, you'll replay the story 1,000 times, trying to make sense of it. You'll miss the illusion, not the person. But one day, you'll wake up and realize that peace feels better than the chaos ever did. You'll stop craving their attention yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You'll start valuing solitude, because silence is safer than manipulation. That's when you know you've truly healed, not when you stop thinking to them. Reprogramming the subconscious mind. To prevent repeating the pattern, you have to go deep, beyond logic, into your subconscious programming. Every relationship you attract mirrors how you see yourself. If you believe you're not enough, you'll attract people who believe love must be earned, you'll attract those who make you prove it. The transformation begins when you change that inner belief. From, I need to be chosen, to, I choose myself. From, I must prove my worth, to, my worth is not negotiable. From, I can fix them, to, I can only heal me. When you embody that mindset, narcissists stop finding you attractive. Because they can no longer control you. To empowered. The ultimate goal isn't to become cold or detached, it's to become self-possessed. To love deeply, but wisely. To see through charm, and listen instead to consistency. When you evolve from empath to empowered, you no longer chase connection, you command respect. You no longer tolerate emotional games, you walk away. You no longer explain your boundaries, you enforce them. That's the true mark of healing, not that you never meet another narcissist, but that you never entertain one again. The Stoic lesson. There's a quote from Marcus Aurelius that fits perfectly here. Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. In other words, stop trying to prove your worth to people who can't see it. Be your own validation. Be your own peace. When you master emotional detachment, not apathy, but self-control, you become unshakable. You stop being a source of supply for manipulators and become a source of strength for yourself. Final message. If you've ever loved a narcissist, understand this. You didn't fail at love, you simply loved someone incapable of loving you back. But that experience wasn't a punishment. It was preparation, a lesson in boundaries, discernment, and self-worth. Now you know what manipulation feels like. Now you know what peace feels like. And more importantly, now you know the difference. Walk forward with that wisdom. Protect your heart. The hidden magnetism of narcissists. Narcissistic people are naturally drawn to those who provide them with what's called narcissistic supply, the emotional fuel that keeps their ego alive. This supply can come in many forms. Physical attractiveness, social status, praise and admiration, emotional attention, or simply someone who makes them feel special. So ironically, just being qualities that make you a good person, can also make you attractive to a narcissist. You might think, wait, does that mean I should stop being me? Absolutely not. Your warmth isn't the problem, their exploitation of it is. What matters most is learning how to step off the narcissistic carousel before it spins out of control. Because once it starts, the praise, the charm, the attention, followed by the manipulation, it becomes a dizzying cycle that drains your peace and self-worth. Before we begin, if you're someone who's ready to heal, grow, and understand the deeper layers of human behavior, I invite you to join this community. Or how to become happier, healthier, and more emotionally healed through awareness and self-knowledge. Backhand index pointing right, click the subscribe button and be part of a movement built on truth, emotional freedom, and authentic connection. Your support means the world, and your comments, your stories, your insights, they fuel this mission. We're just getting started, and I can't wait to go on this journey with you. Understanding narcissism, style versus disorder. Let's start by clearing up one of the biggest misunderstandings. There's a difference between narcissism as a personality style and narcissistic personality disorder, NPD, as a clinical diagnosis. Narcissism is one of many personality styles that exist in people. Some are more self-focused, some are more empathic, some are more anxious, and so on. However, narcissism is considered a maladaptive style because it tends to put people at odds with others. It damages relationships, erodes trust, and makes emotional closeness difficult. Now, when does it cross the line into a disorder? That happens when narcissistic traits, such as low empathy, entitlement, arrogance, grandiosity, envy, manipulation, and constant validation seeking, become chronic, pervasive, and consistent across multiple areas of life. At that stage, a licensed mental health professional might diagnose the person with narcissistic personality disorder. But here's the catch: most narcissistic individuals will never walk into a therapist's office to be evaluated. They don't see themselves as the problem. They see everyone else as the problem. The gray area most people miss. Most people you'll meet in life who show narcissistic tendencies are not clinically diagnosed, but that doesn't mean they can't cause harm. Think of narcissism as existing on a spectrum. On the mild end, you'll find people who are self-centered, emotionally immature, or simply unaware of others' needs. On the extreme end, you have malignant narcissists, coercive, manipulative, and right in the middle, the gray area, lies the group most of us end up dealing with. These are the people who aren't overtly cruel but still leave you feeling drained, confused, and emotionally exhausted. They're not necessarily evil, but they're toxic enough to distort your sense of self over time. That middle ground is where real emotional damage happens. Not because of violence or overt abuse, but through subtle manipulation, gaslighting, guilt-tripping, and emotional neglect. These aren't everything. Here's something that may surprise you. Even many clinicians hesitate to diagnose NPD. Why? Because labels can be stigmatizing and don't always help the client heal. Some experts even believe the diagnosis itself should be retired, arguing that understanding narcissistic patterns is far more important than sticking a name on them. After all, in real life, you'll rarely meet someone who has been officially diagnosed. But you will meet plenty of people who behave like textbook narcissists. That's why the focus shouldn't just be on diagnosis, but on awareness. Once you can recognize the traits, the manipulation, you can protect your boundaries before you get pulled too deep. A reality check. If you meet someone at a dinner party and within a few hours you start noticing patterns, bragging, belittling, or refusing accountability, you have a narcissistic personality. But even then, it's not your place to diagnose. You can't look at someone and declare, you have narcissistic personality disorder. That's not how it works, nor is it helpful. What is helpful is knowing the signs and being emotionally intelligent enough to step away before you get entangled. Why narcissism? Let's dive into something that confuses a lot of people. Why do narcissists seem to be drawn to kind, genuine, empathic souls? Here's the paradox. Narcissists are emotionally empty, yet they are disconnected from their own inner world, so they feed on yours. They're not looking for love, they're looking for supply. They want validation, admiration, and control. And who provides that best? Empaths, and others, and who want to help. Empaths radiate warmth, compassion, and understanding, all things the narcissist lacks within themselves. To them, your kindness is not a virtue, it's a resource. Your empathy becomes their food. And here's what's chilling, narcissists often have a radar